If you'll allow me just to briefly recognize some of the distinguished persons here with us, the honorable ministers who have joined us this afternoon, Honorable State Secretary, and before she was State Secretary for Sweden, she was Sweden's ambassador to Rwanda. And we worked together in Rwanda for a number of years. So it's a real pleasure to welcome Jenny here tonight. Excellencies, ambassadors, and the UN resident coordinator, my bigger brother, Prof. Tarpe, the head of the EPA, my colleagues, head of UN agencies, and other diplomatic missions here, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for making the time to be here with us this afternoon for this very important launch. A couple of housekeeping affairs. One, I hope you've taken note of our sign language interpreter. This will not just be for today. This is now policy in UNDP, and I suspect very shortly needs for the rest of the UN system to ensure that all of our events are inclusive and accessible. So this is the direction in which we're moving. I also want to invite you all to read an article that the Swedish ambassador Urban and I co-wrote, and which was published a few days ago. So it's in pretty much all the major national newspapers. But it starts with a quote from an old gentleman who was there on World Wetlands Day in February. It says, this is the statement from the old man. He says, "The forest and the Pataway waterfall have been here decades before we were born. And we've been farming, hunting and collecting wood from this forest all these years. Now that the government has declared this area protected and prevented us from accessing this area, how do we survive as a community?" It's a very powerful statement, but it's also exactly what Stockholm+50 is all about. 50 years ago, at the initial conference back in 1972, the issue was, how do we protect our environment and our natural resources and protect the lives and livelihoods of people at the same time? And that's why we talk about people, planet, and prosperity. We have to tackle all three at the same time. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, I'm very happy, very honored that you've all accepted our kind invitation from Prof. Tarpe and ourselves. The EPA is the lead national agency for these consultations, so we're very grateful that you're here with us today. And as you just heard from the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs, today Liberia has signaled to the world at large that it is firmly committed to the global cause of protecting this planet and all the people who live on it. Thank you so much, Minister Amaya, for that very powerful, very thought-provoking speech that you just delivered. But also for setting out so clearly your government's commitment and the actions that the government of Liberia is taking to achieve the global environmental goals. Let me also express our gratitude to the State Secretary of Sweden for gracing this event and for her enlightening address. And one thing she says, which is something we all know to be true, Sweden continues to be one of the foremost countries in the world calling for multilateral cooperation to tackle challenges which no one country or group of countries can tackle on their own. And the EU ambassador was quite correct that Sweden saw the challenges of the environment long before many other countries did. I also want to thank the UN resident coordinator and the ambassadors who spoke, the US ambassador, the EU ambassador, and the Ghanaian ambassador, who presented their statements at this event. And a special thanks to Victoria. I think other speakers have thanked Victoria before, but what a lovely, lovely young lady, and what a powerful statement calling for a safer, healthier planet, not just for her generation, but for generations to come. A special thanks, of course, to Professor Tarpe. As I mentioned, the EPA is a lead national institution in this dialogue and the entity that has convened us here today. And the Swedish ambassador and the team. There's been a lot of work between our respective teams in UNDP and the Embassy of Sweden and CEDAW to make today happen. All the statements that you've heard today, ladies and gentlemen, will be documented in the Stockholm+50 report, which will be delivered for the attention of world leaders in June. Now, as we prepare to leave, let me express my two desires. The first is I do hope that today's launch will be the beginning of a much stronger movement to bring citizens on board with this agenda of protecting our environment and promoting prosperity for people. We want to enlist as many people, as many citizens as possible from right across Liberia. We want to bring the private sector on board, more NGOs and civil society organizations, more policymakers. I'm happy that the Minister of Agriculture and the Minister of Foreign Affairs are here. But we also want the other ministries of finance and public works and so on. We want more ministries and agencies, more development partners on board. There's an awful lot to be done to protect Liberia's resources, its forests, its rare plant and animal species, its wetlands and its coastlines, and also to prevent further plastic pollution that you've heard so much about already, and also to create decent jobs for its people. There's a lot of work that's been done, and I must say in UNDP we're very happy to be partnering with the EPA. We have a number of projects with the EPA, as well as with the Ministry of Agriculture, and we're partnering with Sweden, with the EU, my sister agency, the FAO, many of the NGOs that are here. We do have collaboration, and so we want to deepen that partnership, deepen these collaborations, so that we can find the solutions and implement them. And this actually is my second hope, that after talking today, tomorrow we will act. I don't want us to be seen as the people who came here and spoke about problems and challenges and fancy words, and then left, and nothing happened. We must be the people, the ambassadors, the ministers, the heads of agencies, the regular citizens, the NGOs. We must be the people who acted. There are some who say, and there are those who do. We must be the doers. So I call on all the young people, the women, the private sector, the government, civil society, persons living with disability. I call on all of us. I want to see you at the upcoming regional dialogues in Buchanan and in Ganta and Monrovia. And I want us to find solutions and then find ways to implement those solutions. Together we can collectively work to make this country and this planet a healthy and prosperous place for all peoples. Thank you all so much. God bless you.